The club has just issued a statement to say that for the next game, live here on talkSPORT on Wednesday, away at Manchester United, they've said that Michael Skubala, Paco Gallardo and Chris Armas, the background team, will be taking training and will look after the team. And that development coach, let me just see who, and Skubala will also be taking on the club's media duties, starting with a press conference tomorrow in the build-up to that game against Manchester United. I can tell you that according to the bookmakers, I talk about changes on changes. The favourite at the moment for the job is Carlos Corberán, who's only taken over West Bromwich Albion and taken over West Bromwich Albion very, very well 5 months ago. He's not odds on or anything like that, but he is a relatively short price favourite for the gig. And as we've been saying, and incidentally, we'll miss Jesse Marsch, I think, in the media because he was one of those managers who tended to have something to say if you asked him a question. And Danny, let me ask you about the Leeds players then. They did seem to be giving as much as they had for him, and it wasn't getting them results. Will they be on tenterhooks now about who the new manager is, or is it all just part of being a pro footballer?
There tends to be a feel-good factor when a new manager's coming in, because normally a new manager's coming in when there's been a bit of doom and gloom and criticism and pressure. So that pressure gets released by him going. And all of a sudden, the fans become more galvanised and more hopeful and more positive, which passes on to the players generally. There'll always be one or two really disappointed because they had such a good relationship with the manager. But overall, I think the feeling will be positive. I think they'll take it. Some of them, the bigger boys in the group, will have a look in the mirror and think, I've let them down a bit. But ultimately, it's as simple as not having someone scoring enough goals, being creative, not just scoring goals, creating enough for them. They have had games where they've played decent football. They've been in the games, they've been competitive, they've matched teams. They just don't have that quality in the final third that gets them over the lines in games. So I think a new manager coming in, whoever it is actually inheriting a decent group. I think some of the signings have been good. He has persisted with playing Struijk at left back, which I find bizarre because he's been struggling like mad.
Can't play there, can he?
No, and he's not comfortable on the board. So you're not even sacrificing his defensive. It's just a mismatch. Rocker in midfield's not really good enough. That's why they've brought McElhenney in, who's going to start playing now. I'd imagine he's much better physically, much more confident on the ball. So that'll give them a big presence in the middle of the pitch, and of course it helps when you're playing with your best mate. Those two have got a nice understanding. But I think the Rodrigo injury is a big blow to them because he's the only one. He's been the only one who looks like he can get a goal from. Bamford's confidence is shot. I mean, he's got to take him out of the firing line. He doesn't look like himself. They've signed a new lad who they've spent a lot of money on, the striker. I've forgotten his name. Forgive me, I should know. I'll get some help in a minute, I'm sure.
Rutter.
What's his name?
Rutter,
that's it. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. They spent good money on him, so I expect him to get some game time. But overall, if you were going to take one of the teams down there, if I was a manager looking at that as a perspective, a potential of... Has that squad got potential to stay in the league? Yes. Has it got fitness and energy and a bit of hunger about it? Yeah. They play with a bit of fire. They're not a group of players you look at and think they've given up. They need reinvigorating. They need re-energised. They've got that. So I think it's a pretty good job for someone to take on.
So as my Leeds United supporting pals said to me today, why don't we just go and get Bielsa back? Because actually, the Leeds fans would be very, very happy to have him back. I'm not saying that's practical. And if you can't get him back, then you get Corberán, mini Bielsa, who was there before, and that seems to be
Marcelo
the only.
is third favourite, Sean.
Let's give this some reality. I mean, I understand the godlike status he's got and why. It's self-explanatory. He's done an amazing job there, but the last season under Bielsa, they were all over the place. They'd gone, and there's no way. I'm telling you this now. The players wouldn't say it in public if he got the job again, but they were glad. Because they understood, you could see it in their body language.
I'm only quoting the Leeds supporting mates.
No,
it wasn't
I know.
necessarily my opinion.
But the players, now
that you've just trashed
the players' heads would be between their knees if he came back in.
But what about Corberán then, who was his loyal assistant and who people think was a great coach and who's proving to be so?
Well, he's doing a great job at West Brom, but I wouldn't imagine he's the exact clone of Bielsa. I would imagine he's picked his best bits, and I think he's probably the safer way to go because he's younger, he's got different ideas. Although he's got bits of Bielsa, he'll have bits of other people as well.
Is he risky?
And not everything's a risk now when you're fighting relegation. I think the job he's been doing at West Brom gives him a great chance, because you know what they're looking at now is for a bounce, because they want to stay in the league, Dan, don't they? And he's gone in at West Brom and straight away at the ground running, and that says to a prospective employer that his methods work. Now, I also think, and I might be wrong here, but I think that the Everton result and transformation against Arsenal, granted only one game, has probably triggered Leeds a little bit, because they've seen the bounce and the effect.
I don't think you're wrong, and it's not just the Everton result. If you look at the weekend's results, I look at the bottom of the table here. Leeds, they got beat. West Ham got a creditable draw at Newcastle. Wolves won. Leicester won. Forest won. I mean, the bottom of the table was extraordinary this weekend. And, I'm not saying that the Leeds United board are sort of as dim as to, take it week by week like that. But you'd be... And of course, you're actually right, the Sean Dyche thing. But if they go for Carlos Carvalho, they're not getting a Sean Dyche. They're not getting a... I don't want to do Sean down here. I think he's a terrific coach. But someone who knows how to keep teams in the Premier League, even in the short term,